folks later.
Should be good to go there.
All right, we are recording and ready to go. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited you're here. On behalf of the Mississippi River Plastic Pollution Initiative, as you've seen in the email, you're all part of a pilot project taking place in the areas along the Mississippi River around St. Paul, St. Louis, and Baton Rouge to collect the first ever snapshot of plastic pollution along the river. The webinar today is specifically for educators. So we're really looking forward to having you and your students join us in this effort. It's going to be incredible and so amazing. You should have access to a participant agenda if you want to follow along there. Elaine has also dropped the project website into the chat. We'll be dropping lots of links into the chat. They're also linked on your participant agenda. Do not worry, you will have access to all of those after today's webinar. So we have a really great group of project partners on this initiative, and we have a big group, so we won't have time for everyone to introduce themselves, but I do want to introduce some of my colleagues who are on the call with us briefly, maybe just give a wave. But I'll start with myself. I'm Carly Lovern. I'm the Southeast Regional Director for Education at National Geographic. I'm joined by my education colleagues from National Geographic, Elaine Larson, who is our Midwest Regional Director, and Mary Ford, who is our Director of Citizen Science Education. I'm not sure if Teresa or Elisa are on the line. We may have some other Nat Geo folks joining us, but a really fantastic group of people from National Geographic. We're also really excited to have our partners from the United Nations Environment Program. We have Maria Morgado, I see here, giving a wave. She's done an amazing job coordinating this project. And I think I saw Laura Fuller, and is Jane here also? Oh yeah, there's Jane Eisenhart from Unep. They are gonna talk to you a little bit later about social media and how you can continue to connect with us after today. From the University of Georgia, we have Catherine Youngblood, who's the Director of Citizen Science for the Debris Tracker app. So you're going to learn a lot about that today, and you have an expert teaching you. And last but not least, we have Jenny Wendt from the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative, who's really just been doing incredible work organizing partners and organizations all along the river. So we're super excited to have her join us today as well. Did I miss anyone from our project team? Okay, I think I caught everyone. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jenny to give us a brief overview of the project.
Hello, everybody. I am very excited to see so many people on this call. This is such an awesome project. This image by now, but this shows the Mississippi River watershed in the upper part of this hourglass. So every state you see in there drains to the Mississippi River. It's the fourth largest river watershed in the world, draining approximately 1.2 million square miles. It includes 32 states, either all or part of 32 states in this country, including part of 2 Canadian provinces. So plastics can travel from anywhere that you see here through storm drains, tributaries, streams, creeks, making their way to the Mississippi River, down to the Gulf, and then out to the ocean. So everybody knows about ocean plastics, but a lot of times here in, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, people don't think that they have an impact, but we all have an impact, good or bad. And you all know that, which is why you're here. But the thing is, we do know that 80% of ocean plastics are land-based. So they all originated, that many plastics came from the land. But what we don't know is exactly how many. So the idea of this project is to find out, get some idea with all of your help, how many plastics, the what, where, how plastics are making their way to the river. Once this project, once we gather all this data, we will have a report, and that report will be used to create policy to help businesses, cities, communities, and manufacturers to make some changes to prevent the plastics from getting into the river to begin with. So we already know kind of that there's stormwater issues, there's solid waste issues, but there are a lot of things that we're not aware of yet. And we also are hoping that this extensive awareness through this national program can raise some action, create some action to prevent this waste from making their way to the river. I do want to stress, this is a pilot project. So you are all in this with us, and we would never be able to do it without everybody's help. I'm so excited. There are so many partners and people interested in this from all 3 cities, St. Paul, St. Louis, and Baton Rouge, and a lot of other cities that I've talked to, even Memphis, Hannibal, New Orleans, Newport, Hastings, all over the Mississippi River watershed that are interested in this. So the idea of this, is to create this report, to create some policy, and also to possibly then make this even a bigger citizen science project for more than just 3 cities, but along the whole corridor, and then measure our successes as we go. And the great thing about citizen science is getting students involved. They see their immediate impact, and they see their impact within their community. They can see their impact through the whole corridor and know that they're making a difference. So that's why I'm super excited about this project, and I will hand it over. I'll be on for anybody if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Jenny, for that overview. And I am now going to pass it over to Catherine Youngblood to talk about the Debris Tracker app.
All righty, thanks guys. Thanks for that intro. Let me get my slides pulled up here. All right. So Debris Tracker is basically the tool that we're going to use to collect all this data and gather all this important information that Jenny was just talking about. So basically the Debris Tracker app was developed in 2010. So we've been around a while, and we were developed in partnership with the University of Georgia and the NOAA Marine Debris Program. And we are now powered by Morgan Stanley, and also in partnership with National Geographic. So what the app is a tool to record geospatial data on litter. So it's very point-specific data on exactly where litter is found in different places all around the world. And as Jenny was saying, it's not just on the coast, but also we're looking at really data upstream in communities, trying to look at and understand how litter is ending up in the environment, and then how it's making its way into waterways and then into the ocean. We've made a little bit of progress towards that goal of getting this bigger picture of plastic pollution through citizen science. To date, we have about 3 million items logged in over 90 different countries. So it's really a growing platform. However, there is a lot of data that's still missing on the Mississippi River and in the inland US in general, where there's not a lot of information. So this project is really filling an important data gap from a scientific perspective. And all of that data that's logged on the app is available online on our open data platform. So that's another really core value of what we're trying to do, is that we're making all of this data that's logged by different people, different organizations, different researchers available online through an open data platform, so that anybody can download it and use it in informing local, policy, local solutions, even their own personal actions that they want to try to do. Yeah, so the big 3 questions that we're trying to answer with this kind of data is, what is it? How did it get here? And then the big one being, what can we do about it? So the method that I'm going to talk a little bit about today, and again, this is, I'm going to show you a couple different ways that we're hoping people will collect data along the river. And definitely, these are just suggestions. it is adaptive in the sense that, whatever kind of data collection works best for your classroom or getting out with your kids to collect data, we are flexible in that sense, but these are just kind of structures and options of ways to collect data along the river. So the primary way is actually collecting data in urban areas. And the transect you see here is actually an example transect of data that we collected in 2019 in National Geographic Sea to Source expedition along the Ganges River. So that expedition traveled from the Bay of Bengal to the Himalayas and stopped at 10 different communities along the way, trying to assess how plastic pollution is ending up in the environment. And in doing that, we looked at litter close to the source. So we looked at litter in urban environments. And this citizen science method that we're proposing for the Mississippi is an adaptation of that method that we used in the Sea to Source expedition. So basically what that actually means is that we're going to provide maps of preferred sampling locations that are basically focused on the intersection of the river and the urban area. So this is just one example map for St. Paul, and we'll have maps of these for all of the major cities, but those links will be publicly accessible, but we're still working on finalizing those with some of the partners. So those are still a work in progress, but just to show you what it will look like is something like this, where we have these urban areas highlighted where we want data. And then we'll also have kind of directed, the bright yellow squares are basically preferred sampling locations. And then as we get data in, this map will be updated and adapted. So you'll be able to see where data collection has already occurred and where we need more data collection, which will really allow us to get that full picture of what the urban area along the river looks like. And so the actual sampling on the ground in these urban areas looks like collecting data along litter aggregation pathways. So that's basically a fancy term that we've coined for places where litter tends to accumulate temporarily before it enters environmental sinks. So if you've ever gone for a walk in your neighborhood and looked at litter, you'll notice it often tends to accumulate in the space between the sidewalk and the road, along pathways and parks, along roadsides where people throw stuff out of their cars, those kind of locations. So basically what we're asking people to do is take a transect that's 1 meter in length, which is about the length from the center of your chest to your outstretched fingertips. So do a transect that's 1 meter in length along one of these litter aggregation pathways and collect and record with the debris tracker app everything that you're seeing in that pathway. And so then after 30 minutes of tracking along that path, following that path, you get this line of data. And again, it's very point specific geospatial data. So it really will allow us to get to look very carefully at kind of what the influences are on the kinds of litter that we're seeing. What kind of stores are nearby, what kind of infrastructure is nearby. That really point specific data allows us to delve into some of those details, which helps us in turn in understanding where it's coming from and then also in formulating solutions. And then the other type of debris collection is looking at floating debris. So we're going to have observation points on those same maps set along the river. And we're basically asking people to go and look at the river and count all the debris that they're seeing for a minimum of 15 minutes. So again, we're looking at this intersection of the river and the urban environment, and floating debris, what's entering from the community into the river is a really great way to get a pulse on that. So this is another way to get engaged there. And then finally, we have accumulation sites. So for some locations, there will be large accumulations of litter, especially along the riverbank, in canals, in maybe park areas, but in certain areas, there's too much litter to do a typical transect. You'll have to kind of collect it all at once. And so this is one example from a small island off the coast of Belize, where they're actually, they've logged over like 20,000 microplastic fragments. And so obviously that's very difficult to log every single one kind of as you're going. So in these kind of accumulation sites, the preferred method, again, is to record with the app as you're going, because this gets the highest level of geospatial accuracy. But we've also created a online portal to manually upload data. So the app is live recording your location because it's designed for this use in the field. But we have an online platform on our website that allows you to bulk upload data. So a lot of organizations, if they're doing kind of more extensive cleanups, like to pick up everything first and then sort it and then log it. So this allows you to select that precise location where you found it and flag it as bulk cleanup data of one big aggregation site rather than that data along a pathway. And then let me play this. So yeah, again, just to put this back in context, but this is the Mississippi River watershed, and this is the data from 2020 collected along the Mississippi. So you can see it's pretty sparse. We don't have a lot of information of what kind of litter is happening upstream. So much of the citizen science effort around plastic pollution has been focused on the coast, which is really important, but litter is beginning in our communities, and it's important to understand those upstream sources so that we can understand solutions. So I will stop there, but I will drop some important links in the chat. And let me really quickly share one more thing. So we actually just got this up today. There we go. But this is our citizen science field guide. So I'll share this link in the chat, but this is on our debris tracker website. So there's also lots of additional resources that kind of go into the nitty gritty of how to use the app, what buttons to press, those kind of things. But this field guide in particular details those 3 methods I just kind of skimmed over and talks about those in more depth, also gives some context on how to use the app and on the project in general. So definitely recommend this as a resource for learning more.
And Catherine, that field guide will also be linked from the project website, correct?
Yes, it will be, but we just got it up on the website today. So you guys are kind of getting a sneak peek before it's live on the project website.
So I'm curious, maybe we can use the reaction button if folks on the call have used the debris tracker app before. Yeah, I see a few. Katie's laughing. I don't know what that means.
Sorry, I was thinking it was like sad, like I hadn't used it. So I apologize. Inappropriate use of an icon. Sorry about that.
I thought it was perfect. Okay, so a few people have used it. It's I am by no means an expert, but have it on my phone and have used it and found it really intuitive. But I do want to make sure, since this is technology we're talking about, that we leave time for folks to ask questions of Catherine, specifically about the debris tracker app. She is an expert in it. So you do have the field guide and all of that, but I know sometimes I just like to ask the experts to make sure I know what I'm doing. So any questions for Catherine, and feel free to unmute or drop a question in the chat.
I'll also say really quickly, for those of you who have used the app before, and for those of you who haven't, you're probably aware that within the app, there are multiple different lists, and all of those different lists are different methodologies for tracking data. Basically, they're different list of items. So we have a list specific for this project called MRCTI. So when you open up the app, you'll look for the MRCTI logo, and then you can click that list, and that will take you into the list of items that we've curated for the Mississippi River. We're also launching a really big app update next month, so that'll happen right before this project. So yeah, look out for that as well.
Catherine, what are the dates, the target dates for this project, for collecting the data?
Yeah, the target dates are April 1st through 18th, although we are aware that some people in Minnesota, that's very early. So I think we're open to including data through April 25th.
We have a question from Jean in the chat about the age of students using the app.
Yeah, so per our guidelines, to create an account on the app, you have to be over the age of 13. That's due to privacy concerns because the app is using your location to collect this kind of data. We have people who have kind of gotten around that by creating classroom accounts and sharing that login information among students. For younger students in particular, I'd really recommend a paper data card over the app. I think the app, trying to use the app itself can be kind of an extra learning curve over the data collection. And then you can use that online upload feature that I showed you to still be contributing that data. Yeah, but I've heard people, fairly young students who have used the app successfully. It just really depends on kind of access to phones and how much time you have to really work with them and train them on how to use it, versus a paper data card with tally marks is pretty easy for kids to pick up on.
I also see Maggie mentioned in the chat that she's used parents for this. So having kids use it with a parent account. It can also be a great activity if you're fully virtual right now for parents to do with their kids. Yep, for pandemic times, for sure, Maggie. Any other questions? Expert.
I see a question on how would you log auto parts bumpers. That's an interesting one. So basically anything that's not in the list, you can other, and then you can use the description box to type a description. And that kind of goes for any item that's out of the ordinary. If there's anything weird about it, anything in particular that you think is important to note, you can use that description box as kind of a flexible box to include additional information. Yeah, so for auto parts, log it as other and then type in a description of what it is. I see the next question we've got, what if someone collecting trash not close to the Mississippi, what logo would you suggest you click on? We're really not limiting necessarily to, right on the riverbank or anything with this project. That's part of the goal, is to really get inland data. So I think you can certainly collect with the MRCTI list. Generally outside of that, the NOAA list is a really great general list for data collection. It's most of the items that you'll commonly see in the US are on that list. So if you're looking outside of for a general list outside of the MRCTI project. But I think this is kind of intended to be an ongoing effort and a continuing project as well. So you can definitely track on the MRCTI list, even if you're not right on the river. And then we've got, how far inland are you looking to capture? Minneapolis, so pretty far inland, St. Paul and Minneapolis. But really we're looking for kind of the intersection of the urban area and the river. But we are adapting those sampling maps as we're getting feedback from organizations about where they know trash is and where they are planning on collecting data. So those sampling maps are really a guide, and they're also, adaptive in terms of, we want to include areas where people know that litter is coming from. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we're really interested in a broad spectrum of areas of data collection.
Catherine, where will they be able to find those sampling maps?
So those maps will be linked in the field guide as soon as we have them ready. I think we're planning on getting final input from the local organizations that are conducting cleanups next week. So I anticipate having them for you very soon, within the next week or two. And they'll also be linked, I think, on the main project page as well. The maps are separate. We have another question on our maps incorporated into the app are separate. So the maps are separate. The maps are kind of a living guide to give people indication of where to go. And they'll be I think we're going to host them in Google Maps, so that's something everybody's used to using and is very intuitive. So we'll put those sampling maps in Google Maps, and then you just go there and use the app to actually collect the data. We're not quite advanced enough to have maps in the app yet, but maybe one day.
All right, any other burning questions for Catherine on the app? Yeah, so question from Aaron there about cleanups, and I guess maybe Jenny, if you can unmute and talk about cleanups, or Maria.
Yeah, I'll just say a few words about it. We want all that data starting now is great. I know I got a call or I talked to somebody about something coming up earlier, I think March 20th. Yes, we want all that data. All of that data and up until April 18th/25th can be included in this report. Just use that MRCTI list.
All right, and we will have, if other questions come up for you as we're going through the rest of our educational resources and other information, hold on to those. We will have time for Q&A with the full project group at the end as well. So thanks for that, Catherine. I feel like I learned a lot too. That's great. So now you know how to use the app, or you know a little bit more than you did about the app, you know about the project. Let's start to pivot toward how you're going to use this with your students and how you can integrate this project into your students' learning. So we're going to start, I'm going to tell you about a few different educational resources, but we'll start with the National Geographic Education Resources list that Elaine just popped into the chat. It's also linked on your participant agenda. And hopefully everyone can find that. I'll give you just a minute to pull that up. And if you wouldn't mind following along with me for just a moment and click on that first link called the Debris Tracker landing page. And this is really a landing site for a lot of educational resources. We won't have time to go through all of these, but just to open it up really quick and see what all is there for you to explore. Go ahead and scroll through while I'm talking here, but you can see that there are links to articles, interactives, videos. There are entire collections of materials around specific things like plastic pollution. There are links to, Catherine mentioned earlier, the Sea to Source expedition on the Ganges. There's lots of stuff that sort of links from this main site. Videos, lots of assets that you can integrate into your teaching setting. So I just wanted to call that out for you. And back on our resource document, there are a few other things kind of in that debris tracker section. They're all actually linked from that main landing page as well. So you don't necessarily need to click on those, but we did just want to call those out as things that might be useful. That plastic pollution action journal might be a really good one, especially for your younger ones who don't want to use their phones. So lots of things there. And then I think I saw Mary posting into the chat as well that action journal is available in multiple languages as well. So that's lots of stuff to explore from that debris tracker resource landing page. underneath that, there's another section of other instructional materials that might be useful to you, depending on how you're thinking about integrating this into your teaching context. It's mainly things on the Mississippi River or rivers and watersheds in general, if you're teaching some of those concepts, depending on the age of your students. So we've just called out a few items from the National Geographic Resource Library that might be a good fit for what you're doing with your students right now. I'll also add that the National Geographic Resource Library is really big. So if there are certain things that you're looking for to integrate this project and you don't see that here, search for it in the resource library. We might have some assets that'll work for what you're looking for. So I also want to call out some resources from Unep in their Clean Seas project. So Elaine, I think, dropped that in the chat as well. But you'll see an education pack specifically for educators, and you'll also see some resources around plastics that might be useful to you as you're planning. So I know that's a lot of stuff, and I'll also, before I pass it along to Allie, just want to make sure that we get resources that you all have as well. So if there are other sites that you use that you think would be really beneficial to your colleagues, drop those in the chat, and let's just share our knowledge on educational materials and instructional resources we can use to integrate this project into your students' learning. So you've heard about the debris tracker app, you've heard about some resources. Now I want to give you a little bit of time to hear from a fellow educator who has done a lot of this type of work in her classroom. So we are really excited to welcome Allie McMillan. Allie is a member of the National Geographic Teacher Advisory Council, among many other things, and is also a Baton Rouge educator. So she'll be participating with you in this project. So Allie, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Carly. Hey, everybody. I'm Allie McMillan, and I teach middle school reading in St. Francisville, Louisiana, which is just north of Baton Rouge. Give me 1 second while I share my screen. Okay. So about 2 years ago, my students and I were able to participate in National Geographic's Educator Explorer Exchange. We partnered with Imogen Napper, who's pictured with me at the bottom of the screen. And Imogen is a marine scientist in the UK, who at the time was completing her PhD at the University of Plymouth. She taught my students all about her work studying microplastics, and she inspired them to find their passion while working to make a difference in our local community. So the students decided to share what they had learned with their reading buddies at a local elementary school. And together they engaged in a single-use plastic collection campaign. As our work together was coming to a close, Imogen was about to embark on the Sea to Source expedition tracking microplastics on the Ganges River that Catherine mentioned earlier. And so, of course, we followed her adventure, and those kiddos are now in 8th grade and so excited to embark on this new adventure, tracking plastics along our Mississippi River, right here at home. So, speaking of this year, of course, it's brought about many challenges. But one thing did not change, and that is my desire to take my students learning outdoors. And so we've continued to think of ways to do that. And this year we've been exploring trees on our campus and throughout our local community. And so with a little creativity, both the in-person and virtual learners have been able to participate. And as we start to think about using the debris tracker, of course, we want to include our students who are learning at home as well. And so we have been able to implement several different activities where we look at identifying local tree varieties as well as examining their impact on local rainwater runoff and other ways that the trees have been benefiting our environment. Our citizen scientist activities have really excited the students, but more importantly, engages them in critical thinking, which then I think they bring back into the classroom and we can apply to our learning. So I really want my students, of course, to know most importantly of all that they don't need to wait until they get older to start doing big things. They can start right now. And if you are thinking about citizen science and how you can implement these activities with your own students, I encourage you to think also about those things that are important, those natural resources right outside your windows and how you can relate that to your students' learning. The possibilities are really endless. And so if you're looking for some resources and you need some practical advice, the Outdoor Education Collective link is shared in the agenda. That has a collection of really practical information. And then of course the Citizen Science Field Guide and the website that Carly spoke about. There's some wonderful tools. If you're thinking about taking on a larger project, I encourage you to check out some of the professional learning opportunities through National Geographic. It was through those engagement with those opportunities like service learning and Educator Explore Exchange so that I really found a great deal of benefit in implementing those activities in my classroom. So I encourage you to check those out as well. Does anyone have any questions? I see we've got some things in the chat. I can't.
Yeah, and I just, thank you, Allie, and I just want to call out the link that Allie mentioned and Elaine dropped in the chat, the Outdoor Education Collective, another great set of resources by a fellow educator. Yeah, and there's some questions I see Mary answered about our professional learning courses, and we will have a student course out on storytelling very, very soon. Any other questions for Allie? One of the things I love about the work that she does is it can be like really big, like they won this, some kind of Esri competition or something, like a really big deal, and something really small that takes one class period. So citizen science can kind of be all of the above. Mary, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do want to make sure that we haven't missed anything. Again, Mary is our Director of Citizen Science Education. Are there other kind of tips or resources, tips for doing this virtually that you've heard and would want to share with our participants?
I think you've really covered everything. The one thing I'll just share is encouraging you to connect with other educators doing this in various ways. And one way is on social media. So on Twitter and Facebook, we talk to a lot of teachers who are doing citizen science using Debris Tracker. You'll find a lot of them sharing tips on there. You can follow us on those platforms or follow that's geography hashtag to find some of our teachers, or Educator Explorer hashtag. But also, I encourage you to join the listserv of the Citizen Science Association, and that's free, and you can connect with other educators doing citizen science there. So just find community where you can to support you as you take this on.
I love that. Thank you, Mary. All right, so we have learned about the app, we've learned about resources, we've started introducing some ideas. Now for my favorite part of any educator-focused workshop, where we actually get to talk to each other. So we have a very large group, so we are going to break out into small groups so that everyone can have a chance to share. We want you to introduce yourself to your small group and discuss ideas for how you can integrate this project, the Mississippi River Plastic Pollution Initiative, into the education work that you're doing. So we will take, Catherine, let's take about 15 minutes in our small groups. and have some times to discuss and share with your colleagues. And we'll come back and share some more. Definitely don't go, because we'll be sharing some of those social media assets that you can use as well before we close.
Before we hop off, I just wanted to flag one more thing that Jenny reminded me of, which is that we're going to have additional training sessions throughout the month of March for this project. So if there's more information or you do have more questions as you kind of get started, you're welcome to join those training sessions as well. So there will be more information out on that as well soon. And with that, we can hop to breakout rooms. It looks like we don't have a lot of people who've switched their names, so I guess we should just do random ones. All right.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah.
And how many should we do? We've got 44 folks right now.
Yeah, can we do 5 or 6 per group?
Okay. There we go. All right.
In my group, Allie, you were starting to ask a question, so I'll encourage you to drop that in the chat so that we don't lose it. But let's hear from the group. What are some ideas that you heard that you're really excited about? Maybe if everyone could briefly share just one idea, or an idea that's not your own, but you heard that you love.
Well, I liked the idea of marking storm drains and combining that with this project at the same time, because you're walking that 1 meter path. I thought that was very brilliant.
Love it. Thank you. Who else?
I can speak for our group. We ended up being, I don't know, just a lot of interconnectedness. We geographically, most of our group was in the same city, which is kind of interesting. But even just the connections of thinking upstream, downstream too, and the effect of some of our student groups and other groups connecting with groups downstream that are doing this work too, and building those connections was exciting for us.
Yeah, I love that. And we ended up having people from the same place too, even without our locations on there. So we had thought, oh, should we do this regionally or how we should do it? So that's kind of fun to see that happened a little bit organically. So for my group, Tara, would you want to talk about your event in St. Louis? I really want to go to it. So let's tell the group.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm at Gateway Arch National Park. My colleague, Erin Hilligoss-Volkman, is also on, and she's at the park with me. We work with the riverboats that are docked here on the Mississippi right below the arch, and they're working, we're all working together to have a river cleanup on March 20th. So typically we do one on National Public Lands Day, so in the fall. So it'll be kind of interesting. Really, that one's more something that Erin leads, but she's probably able to talk more about how what we find in the spring may, be similar or different than the fall. But March 20th with a rain day of March 21st, if for some reason that doesn't work out. We're working to get it online. I don't think it's up just yet, but I'm happy to share with this group. It's a volunteer-led event. We're going to have some food trucks, some live music, some vouchers for the riverboat cruises for the volunteers, and working with our local tourism bureau. And we haven't been able to do a lot with our volunteers, obviously considering COVID and everything. So we're pretty excited to be able to bring them back and do it safely, social distance, outside, So yeah, we're looking forward to it, and being able to integrate the tracker will be nice.
Thanks. All right, other groups?
I'll share something my group talked about, which was the importance of training, just how training on the app can help people get over the hurdle of feeling like it's hard to use, and knowing how to get out there and just put it to use. I shared a little bit about my experience doing trainings on iNaturalist and how even a brief training can make a pretty big difference. And then we were expressing appreciation for how Catherine walked us through the app today and how valuable that was. And then just starting to think through, like, well, how can you offer kind of hands-on training in a virtual world? But Catherine did a good modeling for us in that regard. So thinking about ways to integrate that into what we offer the public.
I'll just mention that with the trainings coming up, if you want to get more in-depth training, which I know that I do, we'll send those out, those dates and times. So then you'll feel more comfortable. So whenever you're speaking with your students or your groups that you're working with, that you can do that. And then the other thing is, I don't know if Catherine mentioned this, but, it's really good. And I talked about this in the last group too. If there's partners, so that one person can collect the data. Did you mention that, Catherine?
I did not, but that's
okay.
A great point.
So if you have partners, so it's kind of a good idea for like an adult or a high school kid or whatever. They could be matched with a younger kid, and one person can use the app and the other one person can collect the trash. And so they're communicating 6 feet apart outside with masks while they're learning about this, and also knowing they're making a bigger impact. So that, it's a good kind of social thing that can happen with this app, and communicating with each other about that without being with social distancing. That's one thing that I really like about it.
Jenny, since you were talking about the trainings, there was a question about the trainings. Are they different from this webinar? I know they are, but could you be more specific about what they are?
Catherine?
Jenny? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. So the trainings they'll be similar to the information you heard today. We'll go into the nitty-gritty of the app a little bit more. And then we're also bringing in some voices from organizations within each of the sites, so you can get to hear from some of those people as well. So it's just basically a way to similar information, but you can also read the field guide in more depth and get the same information. So trainings are not required, but they are an opportunity to ask more questions if you have them as they come up.
Yeah, and I see Maggie has a good question in the chat here, referencing the short videos that are on the debris tracker site and also on the Nat Geo page. And maybe I'll ask Mary to speak to this more, but I'd say some people are perfectly comfortable watching a how-to video and then going with it, right? And others might need more. But Mary, anything to add there?
Only that, exactly that. Like, I think if you're comfortable after watching those videos, then actually that makes my heart happy. And I know it makes Catherine's heart happy too, because we worked hard on those videos. So please use them. We were talking in my group a little bit about how sometimes people just aren't comfortable. Sometimes people who didn't grow up with technology aren't as comfortable with it. And a lot of volunteer groups do tend to have older people who just didn't grow up with a smartphone. So I think that's when there might be more hands-on help that just helps people feel more comfortable. That's my experience training people to use iNaturalist as well. And some folks pick it up just fine, and others really could just benefit from a little investment of time. Yeah, if you're using those videos and happy with them, great. I'll also just use the opportunity to put in a plug for our longer course on data collection, which focuses in on plastic pollution as our kind of case study. And we have a bunch of beautiful videos in that course from the Sea to Source expedition that Catherine talked about. I put it in the chat and you'll find it on our website too, but If you are interested in kind of digging deeper into data collection and data literacy, the next cohort of that course starts April 7th. It's not a synchronous course, but it is paced. So you join it with a cohort, and there's a lot of work with the other folks in your cohort while you're in the course. So check that out if you're interested.
And it's free.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make another mention because that's what I do, and it's that Melanie, you made a comment about the organized cleanups and sending people out on your own. So we're putting together right now a data sheet that's saying, here are different ways you can do this. And so, and when it's going to say, you know, you can go collect data while you're taking your dog for a walk, or you can organize your own small cleanups, or you can join an organized cleanup. So that idea of sending people out with the information on the app is fantastic, especially with the maps that will be available, so they can look in their little groups and say, you know, without having to organize it, you can send people out and say, oh, look, I'll just go out to this area and collect that data. Yes, there was something else, but I can't remember.
And then I just wanted to call out, Catherine dropped in the chat that the only thing that's not in those videos is the methodology, which will be in the field guide. So if you're good kind of getting all that information on your own, it's all there. If you prefer to have someone showing you, then plenty of other opportunities for trainings and to ask questions. So please continue to drop any great ideas into the chat, but I do want to make sure we have time to talk a little bit about continuing to connect with the project as a whole on social media. And I know Mary already mentioned, like, we love hearing from people on social media at Nat Geo Education, and all of our project partners want to hear from you. So fortunately, our partners at Unep have a really amazing site that have social media assets for you. So I'm going to pass it over to Jane and Laura to walk you through that a little bit.
Thank you so much, Carly. So I'm going to quickly just share my screen and show you all the document. There we go. And so this is a Trello board that we've made for everyone to have access to all of our social media materials. It looks a little overwhelming at first for those of you who are not familiar with Trello, but it's basically just a place to house all of the information you could need for sharing and promoting events. So we have all of the different hashtags. We have some images that you can use and promote throughout your networks. We have a really cool infographic. But then most importantly is this third column here called suggested messaging, where we've already created a document with suggested social media posts. So you can access this Word doc and then just copy and paste any of these messages into your own platforms or share them with your partners. And that's everything on my end. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks. And I found it really nice that it's all kind of handy in one place, because I can remember at Nat Geo Education, but I can't remember all the other project partners. So to be able to just like copy everyone and paste it into my social media is really handy. And I don't know about y'all, but I love the graphic that we have for this project with the hourglass. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that as well. Folks are sharing in the chat all of our hashtags and all of that fun stuff. Again, all of these links in the chat are in the participant agenda that I sent out. You have access to all of these links. I will also probably be following back up with this group at some point in the future, just to see how things went and to see if we could maybe continue to talk to you, since, as Jenny mentioned at the beginning, you are kind of trailblazing here on this plastic pollution snapshot. We want to hear how it went for you. We want to get your ideas on how we could improve things like this in the future. So you'll be hearing more from us. And I will I'm going to drop my email in the chat as well. And some of my colleagues might want to do that also, but feel free to reach out to us with any questions. So at this point, we just a reminder that you have access to all the resources, the field guide, everything's going to be connected from that project landing page. So you have access to everything that you've heard tonight. Again, you know, the timing on this is kind of in March through mid-April. And I think we will, let's see, Allie is asking if there's a kickoff date for social media. That's a good question. Jane or Laura, you want to take that?
Sure. So we will be launching this event early next week, and we can share more details for that. But if you follow our social media accounts, you'll be able to see exactly when we started promoting the information, but it should be after March 3rd.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that next week there's the MRCTI Capital meeting in what's supposed to be in DC, but it's not. And that will be the official kickoff with a press release with the mayors and all the cities together. So I don't know if anybody mentioned that, but that will be the kickoff there. And then each of the cities, we're talking to the mayors about a kickoff for each of the regions. But your cleanup dates, none of that is dependent on those mayoral press release kickoff dates.
So Robin just asked if we could put our emails in the participant agenda. We will put that there. That's a great idea. So you can access it. So I think are there any other questions? We still have a few more minutes, but my thought was we would sort of formally conclude our webinar, and then the project partners can stay on up until 5:30 to answer any questions you might have. But before I sort of formally conclude and start with Q&A, any other sort of last thoughts that we want to leave the full group with? Okay, then with that, I really want to thank everyone for hanging with us on a Thursday afternoon towards the end of the week. We are really looking forward to seeing how this project works with your students and the education work you're doing. So we're excited to continue the conversation. So we'll conclude now, but again, the project partners are going to hang out until 5:30 to answer any other questions you might have. Thanks, guys.
I have a quick question for you all. I remember seeing something come through about sending in our logo if we want that to be included. And I've just been underwater. Pardon the pun. And so I don't know if I'm too late. If I'm too late,
you're not.
Oh, okay.
If you find, I mean, I can put it in the chat now, but if you know, there's the email address, it's tloomis@mrcti. You could still send it. We're still doing that.
Okay, thanks. I'll send it right now.
And there was a question today, I think I received and I haven't replied yet, about like if your organization pulls in another organization, then do those logos go there too? And I'm going to say, you know, it's going to go, that those logos are going to go on the MRCTI website about the project. And I'm going to say, yes, give us those logos if there's another organization you're pulling in, so that we can really show the impact of all the organizations involved. I haven't replied to that email. It was somebody in St. Paul. I'm going to tell you all that now.
Thank you all very much.
Leslie's I know I've only chatted with you through email. Everything going okay?
Yeah. So this is great just because this is putting it in top of mind. And it just was a way of setting aside some time to think about, okay, what can I do to help this? Because we're a support and connector organization. So I'm not doing direct ed. So, but super thrilled to hear that my statewide educators can all participate. So
Absolutely.
I'll do my best. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Leslie. Other questions?
I do. So I'm not.
Just so you know, hold on, Brian. This is
Uh-oh.
Brian Waldrop. He is superstar right now. This guy has pulled in U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the National Guard Marine Division, got me a radio spot in St. Louis. I mean, every minute he's like, oh, I got this. So superstar, Brian. Go, Brian.
No. So during a lot of our cleanups, and I've been doing cleanups, my God, from the 90s. Now, things go in patterns, and I'm kind of like that tire specialist. I kind of like going out and getting tires. Melanie knows that for sure. But we find drug paraphernalia, needles and everything else. And I usually carry a Sharps container or an old Tide or a Bounty liquid detergent dispenser and stuff like that to put it in. And I was going through your app and I didn't see anything to label, some of the more hazardous stuff like that. And then the other things that we do find, and since we're along a big river, we do find barrels, tanks, and cylinders that maybe volunteers should not be messing with because they could contain a toxic or a caustic substance inside. So I know what to do with these materials, but how would you educate the public, the citizen scientists and the volunteers that are in this program on what to do or how to handle this? Here in Missouri, when it comes to like the tanks, barrels, and cylinders, if they are known to have chemical or under pressure or something, we would call the Department of Natural Resources and ask for the environmental emergency response team. And they'll come out and they'll analyze it. And then if there's something in it, they'll overcap it and they'll take care of it. But how do we report this stuff on this app? Because I think that's just as important as, picking up the tires and the plastic is first of all, who is letting this stuff go? I know when there's a very quick rising river, some things get captured and taken away. But how can you relay safety practices to the volunteers out there?
Yeah, our official stance is don't pick up anything that's questionable. So we're saying no syringes, no potential chemical stuff for volunteers. However, your point is really good that you are finding that stuff on the river, and that's useful to know. So we can add those items. Sorry, my dog. We can add those items to the list so that they show up on the app.
Okay, we find needles, tanks, barrels, cylinders. And there's some other odd things that we find every once in a while, but Melanie, help me out here. What are some of the other things? So Melanie's with Missouri River Relief. They are the baddest asses, sorry for my French. They got all the big boats. They're out on the Missouri. They're bringing in tons of trash here, and it's just being a buddy picking up, a couple pieces of paper here. No, that's a joke. But what else can they add to the list, Melanie?
Oh, I haven't looked like in depth at their list yet. I'm sorry, but I mean things like light bulbs, which are really strange, that they're still intact.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many like plastic kids' toys and balls and that sort of stuff too.
If you guys have have time to look at the MRCTI list that currently exists, and just want to shoot me an email with what you think we're missing, we can definitely adapt it.
Sure will.
Nice. One more strange and very interesting thing that we do occasionally find are messages in a bottle. And, that might be something interesting to put in there too. I know Melly found a wonderful one along the Merrimack a few years ago. It was 30, 40, or 50 years old, and it still had the message in it. It was still legible. Mm-hmm. And it was thrown in the river up by what's the cave?
The Hideaway Cave, like a Merrimack Springs, maybe, or
it was an outlaw who did stuff in the cave and everything, but the guy who threw it in was from like Minnesota or Michigan, came down to Missouri to float this river. We found it like, or Melanie found it like 48 years. She was able to send it back to the family, and now it's in like a historical society or something up there. And I don't know, a message in a bottle would be a nice addition.
That is too cool.
Yeah, that's like the number one.
Mary Elaine, I feel like we should do a lesson around that or something.
For sure.
I mean, it's a good geography lesson, right? Thinking about how the bottle got from one place to where it was found.
And a good story.
That bottle traveled 100 miles downstream in a glass. It was the old, was it that lemon bottle or something like that?
Yeah, a lemon juice bottle, yeah.
When they were glass. Now we get them and they're the plastic green ones, but it was the old green glass one.
Cool.
You know, it's just amazing what you can find out there. And I'm excited to see the trash, not the overall trash tally, but the odd things. Because that's what, when you do it for so long, you look for the odd things out there. And, you know, the other thing that we just had the Big Money Speaker Series had something on the black carp in the river systems, and they're putting these transmitters inside the black carp so they can track where these black carp go. And I got a report just a couple of days ago that they found one. And usually when the black carp dies, they're on the bottom of the river and you never find them, but they found one. So there's just interesting things that we can find on the rivers.
Catherine, we forgot to talk about the bottle tags.
We did. I thought about that when you were just saying that. We're planning on putting plastic bottles in the river to model what, and there's only 10 of them, so we'll definitely pick up way more than we put in. But they have satellite transmitters in them, so we can see where plastic bottles from the river are going. So we're planning on overlaying this map of what's in the river and what citizen scientists are finding in urban areas around the river with this map of where the plastic bottles are going. So that's another piece of this puzzle.
And where would you find that information out, or how can you track these? Are you going to have a tracker, live tracker, as they're floating?
That's the plan, is that we'll have something up on our website where we can showcase this satellite data alongside the citizen science data.
Because like Melanie and I, we use spot trackers to track when we're on the rivers. So I didn't know if you're using, I mean, it's a GPS satellite thing.
Brian, you should see this. I don't know, Catherine, if you even have it up really close, that one video that you could see where they put it in the Bay of Bengal, or where was it? Is that where it was? That they put one and watched this, and it shows the line of how this bottle like moves all around. So we'll be able to see it, you know, so there's going to be 3 in St. Paul, 3 in St. Louis, and 4 in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge just goes all different ways. And so, yeah, we'll be able to see, you know, if it, does it wash up on shore? Does it, you know, and the kind of good thing is we're putting it in at the high water. So then we'll see how it goes and see where it ends up, you know, in an accumulation spot, or a spot that where litter accumulates. And then, or, you know, see if it makes it down. I know that I love that story though that Jenna said about the ones that you guys put where in India, but they had SIM cards and people were taking the SIM cards out and putting them in their phones. And all of a sudden but these aren't like that. They don't have SIM cards.
So yeah, we'll be sure to mention the bottle tags in a follow-up email, because I can't believe I forgot about that, because I bet the educators will be all about it, but we'll let them know it's out there. So we are almost at our 5:30 time. Any other questions for the project team that we can answer?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for that message in a bottle story. Made my day.
Have you guys reached out to Living Lands and Waters, who, you know, does massive cleanups on the Mississippi River too?
Yes. So they were going to be in Louisiana between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And they are not now. They're going to be on the Ohio River during this phase, but they're going to be back in the Mississippi in November. So it's going to be past this phase, but it'll be kind of good because it'll be that kind of that, you know, my goal is for a fall follow-up. And so they'll be back in the Mississippi then, and they're going to do it. They're going to collect that data, even though it's on that barge. It's going to be quite a.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They do have a huge following too, so I'm sure they can help get the word out. Yeah.
Yes. They're the #1 mentioned organization that I've heard. Yes.
All right, well, we are at time. So thanks everyone. Feel free to follow up via email. I will add our emails into that participant agenda, and we'll follow up with some emails down the road as well. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.